a place of exhilarating beauty, where magnificent mountains and turquoise lakes meet lush rainforests. We'll reach up to the clouds along America's most scenic mountain pass, hike the icy edge of a glacier's crevasse, raft a wild river, travel by train to high adventure, and kick back at a high-altitude chalet.
1, 2, 3.
Trekking through rugged backcountry, we'll witness both fire and ice and take you to places where man meets bear and man's best friend takes charge. In this untamed and sacred space where the buffalo roamed and nature stirs the soul, we'll uncover the many secrets of Glacier National Park. It's called the Land of Shining Mountains, and the majestic alpine vistas dominate the horizon. Glacier National Park stretches across the snow-capped peaks of the Rocky Mountains in northwest Montana. Each year, nearly 2 million people make the pilgrimage to this pristine paradise, because a glacier up close is a sight to behold. And many of them choose to travel here the same way the park's early visitors did. They board a train called the Empire Builder that is now part of Amtrak, and full steam ahead. Glacier National Park is the principal stop along the route of the Empire Builder. In the summer months, over 60,000 passengers hop on and off the train, using it as their primary means of transportation to explore over 1 million acres of parkland.
Well, certainly the best way to come to Glacier Park is by train, and certainly it is the most magical. The whole experience of the train itself, from the dining car to reclining seat coaches to our sightseer lounge car.
All of the water after we pass the Continental Divide flows in that direction and ends up in the Gulf of Mexico.
On the Empire Builder, interpretive guides board the train at different spots along the way. James J. Hill was the founder of the Great Northern Railroad that covered the entire upper western United States. His trains connected the towns and made so much commerce possible that James Hill became known as the Empire Builder. This intercontinental train, named after Hill, made its debut in 1929, linking the windy city of Chicago with the West Coast. But here's something you might not know. It was James Hill's son, Louis, who became Glacier's greatest champion once he succeeded his father as head of the Great Northern Railroad. To promote travel to Glacier National Park, Louis Hill created innovative marketing campaigns designed to reroute wealthy Americans from their European travels to this corner of Montana. And move over Madison Avenue, Louis Hill lured them with a clever slogan which still rings a bell today: "See America First." The slogan worked. Americans headed west to Glacier in droves. And to accommodate them, Hill's Great Northern Railroad built Swiss-style lodges that made you feel like you were in the middle of the Alps. One of the most picturesque of Hill's lodges, the Many Glacier Hotel, is cradled majestically between the mountains and Swift Current Lake, a setting so stunning it's often been called the Gem of Glacier. Another hotel, built by the Great Northern Railroad, the Glacier Park Lodge, has long been considered the premier place to stay at the park. It still offers comfort, class, and a convenient location right across from the train depot in East Glacier. Known as Big Tree, the lodge's most outstanding feature is its lobby. This immense 20,000 square foot space is supported by the trunks of 24 massive Douglas fir trees that stand nearly 5 stories tall. The Glacier Park Lodge is well worth a stop, even if you're just passing through the park by train. The Great Northern Railroad is such a part of the park that one of its old bunkhouses is an attraction. It's called the Isaac Walton Inn, and it sits just outside the park, a stone's throw from the railroad tracks at the Essex stop. The inn was originally built in the 1930s to provide housing for railroad workers. Today, the Isaac Walton, which sports several cross-country trails, is also a popular winter destination. In fact, it's the only historic hotel near the park that stays open year-round. And it's here that guests can relive a little romance from the past by spending the night in one of the refurbished cabooses located right on the grounds, complete with bunk beds and a wood-burning stove. The railroad not only built convenient and luxurious accommodations, it offered guests the chance to spend an enchanted night up in the clouds. The Granite Park Chalet is one of 8 backcountry chalets built by the railroad. Each was located a day apart by horseback, so guests could spend their vacations riding from one to the next. But it was far from roughing it. The chalets offered first-class excursions into the wilds. Meals were served on white linen with a waitstaff dressed in Swiss attire. It was a slice of European elegance on the edge of the frontier, with all the trappings you'd expect to find in the finest hotels. Until the chalets fell on hard times and all but 2 of these luxurious backcountry getaways were shut down. Granite Park Chalet survived, but the times have changed. Now visitors arrive on foot, not horseback, hiking 7.5 miles along the jutting Highline Trail, one of the most magnificent day hikes in the entire park. In the heat of summer, the trail brims with bear grass that grows up to 5 feet high. Although bears are known to eat the bulbs, it was first dubbed bear grass by the Lewis and Clark expedition, who happened upon bears meandering through a meadow of these wildflowers. The Highline Trail is an excellent place to spot some wildlife, from Columbian ground squirrels to mountain goats to the bighorn sheep, whose trademark headgear is an icon of the park. Along the way to the chalet, you'll also pass one of Glacier's most scenic spots, the Garden Wall. But it's not a garden at all. It's what geologists call an arête, a French word meaning fishbone. An arête forms when 2 glaciers meet, creating a long, narrow mountain ridge that looks like the backbone of a fish. Between the rarefied air and the breathtaking views, the trek on the Highline Trail all the way to the Granite Park Chalet is well worth the effort. And once you've arrived, you won't find the sumptuous digs of yesteryear. For now, it's a no-frills hiker stop with very basic accommodations. The kitchen is communal, and guests whip up their own meals. Sure, it's roughing it in the Rockies, but after such an invigorating day, everyone kicks back and takes in the land of shining mountains. So how did this land of shining mountains get its name and its overpowering beauty? To uncover these secrets, we must go all the way back to the Ice Age when glaciers filled this area. Think of a glacier as a river of slow-moving ice, ice capable of making monumental changes to the landscape. 12,000 years ago, these mountains held over 1,000 glaciers. Today, only 37 remain. Yet these colossal masses of ice and snow left a powerful imprint on the mountains, valleys, and lakes. Here's something you should know. The glacial poster child of the park is also one of its most accessible glaciers. Compared to other glaciers, which are even more remote, Grinnell Glacier is only 2 boat rides and a challenging 4-mile hike away. Like many sites in this park, getting there is really half the fun, because the scenery is nothing short of spectacular. And once you're there, there's nothing quite like walking out on the icy edge of a glacier. Dan Faegre of the U.S. Geological Survey says that Grinnell is a textbook example of a glacier's handiwork.
All around me here are sheer cliff walls, and these have been sculpted by the glacier, which plucked the rock out of the walls and has created these dramatic cliffs.
Hikers on Grinnell Glacier tread on thousands of years of history. This area was once blanketed by an entire mile of solid ice, So you better watch your step, because one slip can send you plummeting into hidden crevasses hundreds of feet deep. Grinnell Glacier is named for George Bird Grinnell, one of the earliest proponents of making Glacier a national park. When Grinnell first came here in the 1890s, he marveled at the ice-carved country with its chorus of snow-capped peaks, calling it the crown of the continent. Today, the park's glaciers are still the jewels that sustain the crown.
Glaciers in Glacier National Park are very important as they melt late in the summer. They provide what we call base flow for streams. That is, sometimes all the rest of the snowpack is gone, and it's the melting glaciers that provide a trickle of water in those streams for aquatic organisms to live in.
Glaciers not only sculpt the mountains and feed the streams, they shape the many jade-colored lakes, providing a multitude of pristine water wonders and an outlet for adventure. From fly fishing to a scenic cruise to the thrill of taking on the middle fork of the Flathead River by raft.
You know, Saturday is just partly cloudy and warmer.
Wilderness outfitters monitor weather conditions daily to ensure that safety comes first. Here, everyone is prepared for water temperatures that can fall to a chilling 42 degrees Fahrenheit. Once you hit the river, it's a wild ride that'll make you appreciate the calmer waters. Glacier National Park is home to over 350 grizzly bears and more than 500 black bears. So, if you want to spot some bears in the wild, this is one of the best places to be. Here's a scene you don't often find in the big city: a black bear eating his dinner. And who needs a rod or a reel? Not this guy, as he goes fishing on Swift Current Lake. When spotted, even from far away, bears generate a lot of excitement. Traffic comes to a standstill as gapers stop their cars to take a look. It makes for what some call a bear jam. These grizzlies continue to draw quite a crowd as they graze on the alpine meadows near the Many Glacier Hotel. Sure, bears can harm humans, but it may surprise you to know a large part of their diet includes berries, roots, leaves, and bulbs. Truth be told, the grizzly's fearsome reputation as a predator is unfounded. Attacks are rare, and most occur when people surprise the bears. That's what happened to Roscoe Black on September 9, 1976. He was hiking with two companions on a trail near the foot of Mount Cleveland when they accidentally awoke a grizzly sleeping near the trail.
The next thing I knew, I saw teeth and fur coming at me, and it was only about 6 or 8 feet away. At that point, I backed away, and the bear hit me and knocked me off balance off the trail. The next thing I knew, I looked down and I could see the flesh flying out of my leg as the bear was biting me. And then, all of a sudden, I'm not sure how it happened, but the bear was laying on top of me with its head right here, and I was looking directly into its eye, and I could feel its heart beating on my chest.
Suddenly, the bear stopped biting Roscoe and attacked one of his hiking partners. The other hiker got away by climbing up a tree. Then the grizzly turned and faced Roscoe once again.
He looked at me, and it was almost like this animated Disney bear, you know, kind of looking at me, and then stood up and sniffed the air, dropped back down, and left us. So it all happened within about 45 seconds to a minute, but it was a minute I'll never forget.
Roscoe spent 3 weeks in the hospital, but he and his hiking partner both fully recovered. Today, Roscoe runs his family business, the St. Mary Lodge, just outside the park near St. Mary Lake. The near-fatal grizzly encounter hasn't turned him off to the great outdoors. A Montana native, Roscoe keeps an open mind about the relationship between humans and bears.
I look at it philosophically, I guess, and say, you know, that's their house out there.
We are visitors. We need to take the appropriate precautions. They are one of the attractions for Glacier. They are one of the things that make Glacier a quality park.
The park monitors the bears for the safety of both the animals and the public. The rangers spend a lot of time and effort making sure bears are staying away from people and that people are staying away from the bears. At the Granite Park Chalet, Ranger Alex Stevens peers through a spotting scope to keep an eye out for grizzlies that may wander too close for comfort.
We use it up here whenever we have bear activity to monitor bears, to make sure they're not coming near the chalet, and to see what they're digging up down there in the valley itself.
Each confrontation between man and bear is treated as a unique situation, so a variety of bear management techniques are used to keep things in check. A bear can be chased away by simply shouting, "Hey bear," or by a squirt of pepper spray. But sometimes the situation calls for a more direct method.
Safety's always first. We have a shotgun with rubber bullets, beanbags, and cracker rounds. I'll show them to you. And they're all less than lethal ammunitions, and basically what that means is that they're not going to kill a bear, they're just going to hurt it a little bit and give it a negative stimuli. And certainly you have to be wary of where you place that shot with your bear. You want to hit it in the fatty part of the rear end.
Dogs may be man's best friend, but they're also one of man's best protectors.
Find the bear! Find the bear! Find the bear!
The past decade, the National Park Service has been training a special breed of dog to help keep the bears away. Imported from Finland, the Karelian bear dogs are friendly to humans, but fearless of bears.
So what we're trying to do now is fairly innovative. We'll catch a bear there, release it on site, and use the dogs to bark at it to push the bear away from the places we don't want it. If the bear comes back, we have the dogs and the ability to continue working with that bear to try to teach it it can't be near houses, it can't be in the campgrounds.
Let the bears beware. In Glacier National Park and in other parts of Montana, these dogs have lived up to their grisly growling reputation. Yet never has a dog injured a bear or a bear injured a dog.
Some of the commands that we use with the dogs are to check it out, to see if there's a bear in the area. We also, if we know there's a bear there, we have them find it, or even with radio collars. Tessa, if we have radio collars that are laying out there, the dogs will go up and we'll actually tell them to find it. They'll take us to the radio collar that a bear's maybe dropped. Good girl, Elu, good girl. Hey bear, go on, bark at that bear, Tessa, bark at the bear. Other commands that we use, if we need the bear to leave the area, we can tell them to bark at the bear. And when we want them to be quiet, we tell them that's enough. Okay, that's enough, quiet. Quiet. Tessa, good girl, come.
In the past, bears were relocated to faraway regions in the park with hopes they wouldn't return. But return they did, and relocating was finally rethought.
With the Karelian bear dogs, we generally will do on-site releases. And what that means is we bring the bear back to where it originally got into trouble, where we trapped it at, and we'll release it at that spot so it associates all this negative stimuli. Karelian bear dogs, rubber bullets, humans, noise, they don't like it, they want to get out of it. And it's been very, very effective.
At Glacier National Park, this program has successfully allowed both species to safely share this picturesque part of the world. Along the roadways in Glacier National Park, one common sight is a throwback to the past. Red touring buses ferry visitors from one end of the park to the other. About 500 of these buses were originally built by the White Motor Company of Cleveland, Ohio, to tour the western national parks. But as automobile travel increased, the buses were no longer desirable, except at Glacier, where the Going to the Sun Road provided one white-knuckle ride, a ride not many tourists wanted to tackle. These buses, which had been operating since the Great Depression, were so deteriorated and unsafe that the park had decided to retire the entire fleet. In 1999, Ford Motor Company took on the task of rebuilding and refurbishing each bus by hand. And thanks to Ford, they're as good as new. Although they harken back to old times, they now meet current safety and emission standards and offer passengers a smoother ride. And an important part of the park's history has been preserved. The drivers of these buses were once called gear jammers. Joe Kendall, the oldest jammer in the park, explains.
They got the name gear jammer in the early days because all the buses had manual transmissions, and they had to shift the gears, they had to double clutch them, and you could hear them jamming their gears going up and down the mountains.
At Glacier, people still prefer to take the bus, where the top rolls back to offer sweeping alpine views. These buses provide full and half-day tours throughout the park, servicing all the major lodges. The Going to the Sun Road is the 50-mile highway that connects the east and west side of the park. If you're jumping in your car for a spin, keep your hands on the wheel and your eyes on the road. There's often little separating you from the path to a plunge. Carved onto sheer mountain sides, the twisting road offers a ride of a lifetime. A 3,000-foot climb to cross the Continental Divide. Hailed as one of America's most scenic drives, the momentous undertaking of building the Going to the Sun Road is one of Glacier's most harrowing secrets. Building the road began in the 1920s, but the road wasn't officially finished until 1932. It was a case of man versus nature to get this job done. Among the many hazards were explosives. Men had to dangle from ropes to set their dynamite charges into the rock face, and 3 of them lost their lives. Today, the workers who care for this alpine highway face constant dangers of their own. The road is so high that snowfalls keep it closed nearly 8 months out of the year. Snowdrifts can pile up as tall as 80 feet, the size of a 7-story building. Plowing the road begins each spring, and it's a formidable task. The perils are many, but none are more feared than an avalanche. 70 named and mapped avalanche chutes can impact the road each year.
It's probably, in my opinion, one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. We go through avalanches that are 40, 50, and 60 feet deep, and large rocks falling down constantly.
At one time, workers armed with only shovels helped clear the road. Nowadays, more efficient machinery has taken their place. But it still requires 7 workers and 4 avalanche watchers working at least 40 10-hour days to clear the road, a job that sometimes needs to be done 3 to 4 times because of avalanches. The Going to the Sun Road doesn't open before Memorial Day. By then, the majority of the snows have usually stopped. Although snowfalls can occur throughout the year, even in the summer months. This major annual event heralds the arrival of summer and tourists to the park. Yet, once the road finally opens, motorists need to beware. The #1 danger is falling rock.
We found a car the other day. It was abandoned, the windshield was plumb gone. And there was like a 10-inch rock sitting on the seat. And we do close the road at certain times to go clean the rock slides off.
In spite of the falling rock and the hairpin curves, there are very few accidents along the Going to the Sun Road. And it's here you'll discover some of the park's most spectacular secrets. Lake McDonald, the largest of Glacier's 250 lakes, is one glorious sight. A setting that makes you want to just sit back and soak in the view. And what could be more ideal than staying in the Lake McDonald Lodge? Actually, a few lucky souls live on the lake in private residences that were former homesteads.
Homesteads were established here long before this became a national park. And by the laws of the United States, a homesteader was able to keep his or her homestead, and they remained private inholdings after the park was created around them.
These former homesteads were passed down among families and date back to some of the first settlers in Montana. Beth Ladau's grandfather came to Montana as a prospector. He never struck it rich, but in 1913, he purchased some property and left his family a treasure.
To have a place like that you can return to feels like a piece of your soul. It becomes a part of you in a very deep way that is part of your identity.
Another special spot, away from the bustle of the Sun Road, is the Trail of the Cedars. You may think rainforests are only found in warm tropical places, but this might surprise you. In Glacier National Park, an ancient forest is part of the easternmost reach of the Northwest Pacific rainforest and the home of western red cedars, hemlocks, and black cottonwoods. The Trail of Cedars meanders along a wheelchair-accessible footbridge at the base of Avalanche Gorge, where you'll find one of the park's more colorful secrets. Deposits of finely ground silt called glacial milk turn the water to brilliant shades of blue when reflected by the sun. Another water wonder just off the Going to the Sun Road is Bird Woman Falls, where water tumbles from a hanging valley that appears magically suspended above a larger valley below. Further up, watery tears seep from rocks on a hillside aptly called the Weeping Wall. The Going to the Sun Road peaks at Logan Pass, an elevation of 6,680 feet. Here, the weather can abruptly change from sunny to snowy, Arctic to tepid, meaning no two trips up the mountains are ever alike.
And it's always interesting going up over Logan Pass through the mountains every day because the light is different, the clouds different, the cloud formations make different shadows in the mountains, so it's always an exciting experience.
Logan Pass is where the Going to the Sun Road lives up to its name. It's about as close to the sun as you can get on a U.S. highway. It's also where the Continental Divide separates the principal continental drainages. The divide accounts for the abrupt and dramatic weather shifts at Glacier.
The park is split east side and west side by the Continental Divide that pretty much runs down the middle of the park from north to south. The Continental Divide is made up of two mountain ranges, the Livingston Overthrust and the Lewis Overthrust. The air masses come from the Pacific Ocean, pile up against the Continental Divide, and in order to get over the mountains, they must lose their load, which is rain. And that gets deposited on our side. The air mass slips up and over the mountains, down the other side onto the east side around St. Mary and Many Glacier. Thus, when you go to Trail of the Cedars, you see a lush environment there with cedars and hemlocks. On the other side, predominantly, you see aspen, prairies, and some white pine.
So if the weather drives you off one side of the divide, a move to the other side may save the day. Everyone has heard of the Continental Divide, but the Triple Divide Peak? Probably not. From the Sun Road, this peak looks insignificant, but it's one of a few Triple Divide peaks on the North American continent. When snow or rain falls on the peak, it flows in not two, but three directions, toward the Pacific Ocean, the Hudson Bay, and the Gulf of Mexico. One of the most extreme ways to experience the Going to the Sun Road is to bike up more than 6,000 feet above sea level, a challenge for the best of bikers. Once you reach the summit, the only way to go is down. You can always take on the summit during the day, but nighttime is a different story. Here's a cycling secret. In the summer, around the time of a full moon, going to the sun becomes going to the moon road, or almost. On those nights, bikers ride up to the top during daylight and make their way back down under moonlight. This means riding right on the edge, where safety is a big concern. It's also one of Glacier's most daring adventures. The border between the U.S. and Canada means nothing to these sweeping alpine vistas. One little-known fact is that Glacier National Park has a Canadian partner. In 1932, Glacier National Park and Waterton Lakes National Park in Canada created the Waterton Glacier International Peace Park. the first of its kind in the world. These two parks are run separately, yet they share a common goal: to preserve nature. No glaciers are left on the Canadian side of the border, but the same massive structures of ice and snow that shape Glacier National Park also work their wonders within Waterton Lakes National Park. About 11,000 years ago, the glacier that carved out Cameron Lake receded and left behind one of Waterton Lake's most scenic bodies of water. Looking down the lake toward the U.S., you can see Glacier National Park and the distant peak of Mount Custer. Today, these windswept waters make for a popular spot. And the beauty doesn't end here. Cameron Lake empties at Cameron Falls, near the village of Waterton. This picturesque site is located within Waterton Lakes National Park. From Waterton, you can take a day trip cruise along Waterton Lake. But this boat does more than cross the water. It's your ticket back into the United States. In fact, it's the easiest way to directly cross from one park to the other. The border crossing at a place called Goat Haunt consists of a tiny dock, a ranger station, and a Peace Park pavilion. If you want to check on the weather or catch a lecture on bear safety, this is the place.
And then stay on the trails, camp where you're supposed to. Don't take any dogs with you. Don't take any cantaloupes or sardines. It's very odoriferous. Bears can smell that a half mile away.
While the Canadian side is only a boat ride away from Goat Haunt, getting to Goat Haunt from the U.S. isn't so easy. It's a challenging several-day hike through rugged terrain. Heading north, back to Waterton, a large landmark looms from the top of a hill. The Prince of Wales Hotel overlooks the lake. Its peaked roofs are designed to echo the shape of the mountains that dwarf them. Like the Grand Lodges of Glacier National Park on the U.S. side, the Prince of Wales was built by the Great Northern Railroad in 1927. And like the Glacier Lodges, this 7-story structure has the refinement and style of a European hotel. We'll let you in on one of its secrets. Every afternoon, the hotel carries on the English tradition of high tea, with finger sandwiches and sweets, all served with one of the best views in town. It's high tea on the high Rockies. This regal hotel recalls the British throne, which still holds sway in Canada. But Europeans weren't the first people to cast their eyes upon this enchanting land. Native Americans have been living in the shadows of these great mountains long before the Europeans colonized America, as long as 10,000 years. The traditional songs and dances of the Blackfeet carry on a rich heritage. Their ancestors settled in this territory that at one time ranged from the North Saskatchewan River in Canada all the way to Yellowstone in the U.S. The Blackfeet roamed the plains and hunted the buffalo that once numbered 60 million strong. So how did the Blackfeet slay these great creatures without guns or even horses? In Canada, on the outskirts of Waterton Lakes National Park, sits an archaeological site with a grisly name. Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump is strategically located where the foothills of the Rocky Mountains overlook the Great Plains. Today, things look peaceful, but at one time, this was a killing zone known as a buffalo jump.
To organize these hunts, our people traveled in clans, and if several clans came together, let's say about 100 people, then you're looking at a herd of about 40 to 50 head of buffalo.
Banding together, the Blackfeet separated out smaller herds to create a stampede that sent the buffalo plunging over cliffs to their deaths. In 1981, Head Smashed In was named a World Heritage Site. An interpretive center built into the side of the cliffs helps tell the story of this special place. Inside, you'll find the skulls and bones from thousands of buffalo hunted by Native American warriors.
Well, the buffalo was everything. Our people used it for food, used it for shelter, used it for clothing, used every bit of it for maybe utensils and teepee. It meant everything to them. And that was why it was so important.
As for Head Smashed In's gruesome name, it comes from a tragic tale about a boy caught in the midst of a kill.
So when the kill was over, a lot of the buffalo don't necessarily die from the jump. A lot of them will just break their legs. So when they hit the ground, they have to be finished off. So as the warriors began moving all these buffalo over, they found a little boy underneath the whole pile with his head smashed in.
Head Smashed In was last used 150 to 170 years ago. Artifacts found on the site have been radiocarbon dated back to over 6,000 years, making Head Smashed In the oldest buffalo jump in North America. It's also considered the biggest and best preserved. The Blackfeet moved freely about both sides of what is today the U.S.-Canadian border, where they found abundant natural resources that made this a perfect spot to hunt and camp. At Glacier National Park in the U.S., archaeological remains of a butchering camp nestled along a riverbank reveal Native Americans have been here for thousands of years.
We know that this site here has been used for thousands of years because we find both the artifacts the people used to procure their food as well as some of the remains of the food animals they hunted. And down here, we have the remains of an ancient hearth used to cook their buffalo meat and their plants. There's different ways you can trace how far back people have been in a place. One is their own oral tradition. And the Blackfeet say, the elders have always said, that this is the place where they became the people. That is, this is where they became Blackfeet, on the east slope of the Rocky Mountains.
Chief Mountain straddles Glacier National Park and the Blackfeet Nation. Rising 9,000 feet into the sky, it stands apart. For the Blackfeet, mountains are more than just beautiful sights. They consider them sacred. And Chief Mountain is one of the most revered. According to Jack Gladstone, this mountain is the center of the world.
Well, Chief Mountain is known as the sacred mountain of our people. Chief Mountain had a very special role as being visible from virtually all the major divisions of our Blackfeet Confederacy.
Chief Mountain is thought to have great power. The Blackfeet go to it for spiritual guidance and strength. In a religious custom known as a vision quest, they climb to remote sites to fast and pray and commune with nature. But Chief Mountain is not the only sacred site. Glacier National Park has the highest number of vision quest sites in North America. Many are located in the Two Medicine Valley, a place that is as scenic as it is sacred. Running Eagle Falls was named after a Blackfeet woman warrior. The water cascades from what appears to be a cave into a crystal clear stream. At Two Medicine Lake, one of the park's most beautiful boat rides offers a dramatic perspective of the sacred peaks. And a little-known secret? It was here, at the Two Medicine Chalet, that President Franklin D. Roosevelt chose to give one of his famous fireside chats in June of 1934. And it was also here that FDR was inducted into the Blackfeet tribe.
The mountain that we have here on our left is called Heavy Runner Mountain.
Many visitors to the park never realize its rich native history, a history that dates back to the end of the Ice Age. To learn more about this special place from the people who are a part of it, all you have to do is hop aboard a Sun Tours bus, and Blackfeet guides take you to a place where past and present are forged into one. The majority of the sites you see in Glacier National Park are a result of what is called extreme glaciation. Snow and ice dominate the scene 7 to 8 months out of the year. But for a brief time in the summer, rich alpine vistas and wildflowers take over. What you might not expect to find amid all this water and ice are forest fires. For nearly a century, the park attempted to suppress these naturally induced blazes, mostly ignited by lightning. Until they learn what may seem disastrous for humans is an asset to nature. In fact, for some of the pines in these parts, forest fires are necessary, providing both regrowth and regeneration. The current policy of the national parks is to allow nature to take its course. They only fight the fires caused by humans or lightning fires that are considered a threat to people or property. But that can be a tough call.
As you can see, this fire is just making its own wind and weather, you know. There's a big, huge column behind me, and it's just making erratic winds. And they're sizing up the fire right now and just seeing what they can order as far as resources and attack it from there.
This fire was sparked by lightning, but weather conditions play a major role in how a fire spreads. Hot, dry winds turn this blaze into a 2,000-acre inferno. At Glacier, where conditions can change in the blink of an eye, firefighters constantly monitor the weather before allocating resources. And they're not the only ones. The expression, "the mountains make the weather," rings especially true in Glacier National Park, where extreme weather is often the rule, not the exception. John Gray is a veteran guide and backpacker who's seen just about every kind of weather in these parts.
When you decide to go into the backcountry in Glacier, you need to be prepared for any kind of weather. I've seen it snow every month of the year. That means you need to have the proper clothing, the proper food, the proper sleeping and camping equipment that you need to go back in. You can start the trip in the day and it'll be 80 degrees, and by evening you may be in an alpine area where there might be 6 inches of snow on the ground. And the next day it might be hot again, but it changes, and it changes drastically by the hour.
But don't let the bad weather scare you off. Glacier has been called a backpacker's paradise.
1, 2, 3.
If packing lightly isn't your bag, don't sweat that either. You can hire an alpine porter called a Sherpa to carry your food and supplies along the trail. It's a case of the Rockies meeting another legendary mountain range, the Himalayas. But what some Sherpas at Glacier have hauled on their backs may surprise you. Sherpas lug this refrigerator 4 miles up a steep trail called the Loop. Their destination? The kitchen of the Granite Park Chalet. On Everest, a Sherpa is a member of an ethnic Himalayan group. But at Glacier, Sherpas are college students on summer break looking to earn some cash in the great outdoors. It's a far cry from serving fast food. Whether you hire a Sherpa or lug your own pack, the only way to truly discover Glacier's secrets is by hitting the trails.
Oh, without a doubt, you've got to get into the backcountry. Backpacking is what this park is all about.
It's true that most of Glacier's treasures are found off the beaten path.
Oh, there it is.
You can hike for miles and hours up steep terrain, and then, all of a sudden, the world changes. Like so many sites in the park, this one is well worth every effort to reach it. Iceberg Lake, named for the frigid icebergs that float in its aquamarine waters, is flanked on 3 sides by cliffs that rise 3,000 feet. And even in mid-August, icebergs sparkle in the sunlight. Glacier has been called a wonderland of water, boasting a total of 250 lakes. Yet Iceberg Lake is one of the most striking. Here, thousands of years of geological history spread out before you. This particular formation is called a cirque. The lake sits at the base of a gigantic rock amphitheater, circular in shape, scooped out by a giant glacier. This area might look like a glacier, but it's not. The glacier that created Iceberg Lake melted away during the last century, a fate that also awaits the rest of the park's glaciers. These immense mounds are going extinct. At Grinnell Glacier, black or dirty ice, an increased amount of crevassing, and the convoluted icescape are all signs that warming temperatures are causing this glacier to melt more rapidly than the snow can replenish it. In fact, Grinnell Glacier is 1/3 the size it was 150 years ago. But it's not the only casualty. In 1850, this area was home to 150 glaciers that covered 61 square miles. Today, only 37 glaciers are left, comprising less than 17 icy miles. Dan Faegre and his team at the U.S. Geological Survey use a technique called repeat photography to track the glacier's demise. And a picture is worth 1,000 words. Faegre's team has rephotographed the same glaciers from the exact same view and angle. Black and white photos taken in the early 20th century are compared with recent photographs of Grinnell Glacier. In 1938, the area is covered in ice with no apparent lake. Soon after, we begin to see evidence of a proglacial lake. From a more recent photo, the lake has gotten larger. Another photo shows a portion of Boulder Glacier in 1932 and the same spot in 1988. There is very little ice left on this side of the glacier. Blackfeet Glacier and Jackson Glacier were once one glacier. By 1939, they had separated. Glaciers are just massive accumulations of ice, thousands of feet thick, that slowly respond to heat and solar energy. Repeat photography tells us that these glaciers are receding rapidly, and that the phenomenon known as global warming is claiming Glacier National Park's cherished namesakes. It is estimated that all of the park's glaciers will lose their glacial ice by the year 2030. Although vanishing, the glaciers have left a spectacular legacy, carving out the mountains, valleys, and lakes that surround us, and making this park a place you simply have to experience. It's here that you can relive a little history aboard the only transcontinental train that stops at a national park. Challenge yourself to extremes never thought possible. Kick back at scenic getaways set amid stellar snow-capped peaks, where you can take a moment to contemplate one last monumental secret. These glaciers have collectively rewarded us with a national treasure, wild, unspoiled, and awe-inspiring. To those who take the time to discover it, a park called Glacier is the crown of the continent.